Yep, just turning it on right now. Yep,
Okay.
there we go.
All right, we'll call this to order. Neil will take note of the roll. Neil distributed the minutes from our meeting was it last week or the 11th? Is there a move to approve the minutes from our previous meeting on the 11th?
Am I allowed to do?
Yeah, you're allowed to. 'Cause
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
you're able to read them.
Then I'll second in that case, Colleen's motion.
All right, Colleen in second. Are there any additions, corrections, changes? It was pretty straightforward.
If any other details you guys want to reflect in there, just let me know. Obviously, just went through the video, but so
Yeah. The only thing I would update or mention is on the staff updates. I know those are a lot of numbers thrown out there, and then Mark also just kind of gave us a summary that we have about $550,000 to give away at this current moment. So I think just highlighting that as like a simple fact might be helpful.
Yep, we'll do, Andy. Thank you.
And Teresa, I think you were raising your hand.
Yeah, the only thing I was wondering about is whether our city administrator was also absent for that meeting.
I was definitely absent at that meeting, yes. Just caused you guys to all have to come back here today, so I apologize.
But then I just wasn't sure if, as an ex officio, I didn't know if
Yeah,
your
it's a good
presence
note.
needed to be documented. I wasn't sure what the procedure was, so.
He's the staff person.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Any other additions, corrections, changes? Seeing, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right, perfect. Thanks, Betsy.
That was nice.
Any public appearances? I don't see any. Okay. Old business consideration with possible action on 2024 tourism grant applications. As Neil said, there's some new recommendations from staff that I know he sent out, but he'll lay out here. But we just wanted to, before taking action, kind of see, provide the opportunity for Neil to give us explanation on his staff recommendations, particularly with funding. But so Neil, I don't know if you want to start with the PowerPoint that you provided, and then we'll start digging in item by item.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, let me see. Let me fire that up here. Here we go. So I did email this out to everybody, but just in case here, let me make sure I can share my screen, get to the right one here. I think this is it. Share. All right, so just a quick, obviously, you guys actually had a great conversation at the last meeting, so thank you guys for doing that. I apologize for missing. Just as kind of wanted to clarify some of my assumptions and kind of what we wanted to do on that, and then we can actually dial into the specific numbers on some of those if you would like to do so. Just very quickly, obviously promoting overnight stays in Winona hotels. You always hear heads and beds is always the key metric for anything that we're really kind of taking a look at. Specifically, it's covering marketing costs for events that generate those types of overnight stays. Staff's position is direct. Generally speaking, and this is in my own experience, so just take that for what it is. Ideally, those are reimbursement grants of tourism marketing and promotion costs, so they can actually bring those back into the commission saying, hey, look, we incurred these tourism marketing costs. Here they are. Here's our receipts. Here's our invoices. Here's our contracts for whatever we did. We'd like to be reimbursed for those costs. Here they are. And the commission can do what they would like to approve those as they want. Now that's ideally. Now sometimes that's logistically that can present some challenges for different events, especially if they're smaller events. So that's again, so in a perfect world from a financial management perspective, that is the ideal way to do that. Just talking about, they're really not meant to be the sole operating revenue for events. In my experience, generally those events have a particular budget. This is kind of taking care of and assisting with a particular aspect of that, particularly in related to operating costs. Again, generally speaking, these positions really aren't meant to cover the operating costs. It is really meant to be a kind of a marketing fund to assist in those types of events, specifically to help generate overnight stays. Sometimes that's easier to demonstrate or achieve than others. So that is definitely, but it is always kind of the metric, at least by which I kind of review these in my own past with these, certainly in Sun Prairie, a little bit in Green Bay, but mostly in Sun Prairie. So the one concept I kind of did prevent, I kind of hinted at a little bit, and like I said, was counting on being able to present to you guys at the last meeting and wasn't able to, was, talking about the direct promotion of overnight stays in hotels, financial support related to two events that talk about the direct marketing of local hotels. As part of their event advertising, their registration materials, something at the event, attendance, in-person types of things. City would actually, is generally positioned of providing any like hotel logos, web links, phone numbers, addresses for all the local hotels. Short-term rentals are included in this as well. We use hotels generally because that's our default, but certainly providing those links to those other entities to make sure that they generate room tax as well, about plus or minus $100,000 a year. So making sure we are advertising them as well because they are paying that tax as well. And it's kind of focusing really on the print and digital advertising in exchange for like a lump sum sponsorship of their event is kind of the concept. So essentially we say, determining for $5,000 sponsorship of your event, you agree to include the hotel logos and direct links to those hotels on your directly on your webpage, on your print materials. If there's a program or an event guide that goes with it, if there's a signage at the events that you could actually include those things. Whatever we would like to actually define as part of that, that's essentially the sponsorship from this commission would be essentially in exchange for those types of advertising things. Now, what those funds actually get spent on once we issue those would essentially be up to the applicant. We are not saying, in this case, in exchange for the sponsorship, we are just paying for your digital advertising. We're just paying for these kinds of things. Essentially, this would be us providing a sponsorship. The commission, the Tourism Commission or Discover Monona, whatever we would like to do, providing a sponsorship for the advertising of those hotels in this fashion, defined in a grant agreement in exchange for a sponsorship of X number of dollars. But once that revenue is into that organization, we're saying as long as they demonstrate to us that they have done those advertising things that we have included in their contract, that is simply a revenue to the event. They can spend it however they want as long as they have met the requirements in their grant contract. So obviously trying to tie that sponsorship level to the projected types of overnight stays. I think the one thing I noticed in conversation that came up a little bit last time, the biggest one on there is the wedding event one, which I think is one we want to support the most. But that didn't, just because I took a very conservative view of just the marketing events really at this point for that first run at it, it's considerably less than what some of the others should be. So that's one that staff agrees should be a higher one. That's what we want to talk about. That's kind of what I'm talking about, trying to get to that. It should be, that sponsorship level should be somewhat in line with the number of hotel stays that are projected by that particular event. So on that particular one, I did not move it up yet. I would like to have that conversation with the commission. I think we should increase that one just because of the overall impact of that one. But exactly what's the metric and how much do we really want to do that? Probably more of a conversation we need to have with these folks here. Recommending grant contacts would require that evidence that those defined marketing efforts were completed. So that's if it's screenshots of their website, or if that's providing us copies of their print materials with the information in it, or whatever we would deem appropriate as documenting that, hey, you told us we needed to complete these advertising investments for in exchange for your sponsorship. Here we go. Here we've done them. Here they are. Then finally, I'd say, it's once the sponsorships may be used however deemed appropriate by the applicant, so long as the required advertising of the hotels has been completed and whatever requirements of the grant contract have been met. So that's kind of the direct concept. And this is one I know Andy and I have had some conversations on exactly in terms of whether or not you could directly fund a staff person for an organization, or you could do another operating cost for an organization. This is a little bit of a, I don't want to call it an end around, but it's providing an income stream to the event that's not directly tied to those things, but at the end of the day can be used to offset those costs by the applicant if they choose to do so. So we could just essentially, we're paying for, the recommendation I'm providing is saying that hotel promotion is what what essentially the fund is invested by this commissioner for. So that advertising of those hotels as part of that event, that is what we are providing funding for. So we're providing enough information. If they have additional information, if they can do that, obviously, ideally at a cost that does not, at a lesser cost, and they just essentially becomes a sponsorship revenue. It would be no different than someone saying, hey, we've got an event. We have these 3 sponsorship levels. Hey, Discover Monona or Tourism Commission, we would like you guys to be a sponsor of the event. So essentially writing them a check for the sponsorship, we get those sponsorship benefits. In this case, we're defining those sponsorship benefits specifically as marketing for for our hotels here as part of their event. So does that make sense to everybody?
I have a question, Neil. So are you saying that in this case, it's not a reimbursement where you say we spent XYZ at public radio, we will reimburse this amount, and
Correct.
you're defining it by hotel stays versus an event?
Yeah, essentially, yeah, we'd be doing, yeah, we're trying, but the sponsorship would be more, it would be an upfront investment from the commission essentially prior to the event, in exchange for incorporating all of those different advertising things into whatever materials. We would sit down with the applicant and say, well, we've got a website, we've got a registration form we use, we can have a poster at the event, whatever makes the most sense. Not like somebody's wedding, I don't think we need to have a logo with all 3 weddings on it, but maybe in the lobby, maybe in something else, or there's certainly in the other materials. You know, so we wanted to make sense and obviously kind of be consistent with what the event is. But yeah, this would be, again, the difference is kind of just folks and by targeting on and meeting the requirements of, you know, did they advertise the hotels appropriately for their grant contract in exchange for whatever the dollar figure was that was granted to them? Yes or no? Those revenues essentially can be done. Ideally, we're counting on the fact that I think that most folks are already going to have a website. So just adding some digital information on their website shouldn't be a significant cost for them. If they have print information that they're doing it, hopefully this is adding these things on there is not a significant increase in cost. Then the additional revenue essentially that becomes available then to the applicant to help with the event. Essentially, we are providing a sponsorship in exchange for the advertising. That is what really the official arrangement of the grant would be for those items.
Teresa?
This might be an extension of what Betsy was getting at. So on the slide, so again, sponsorship in exchange for agreed upon advertising versus a reimbursement. So on the initial slide, the slide before this one, number 1, slide number 1 of 3, there was the word reimbursement, I believe, that was used.
Correct.
And it was italicized, so I felt I read it with extra power. And to me, that feels like, show us the receipts from what you've spent, and then we give you the money. That's what that feels like to me. But then on this, but then I kind of
this is different. No, you're absolutely correct, Alder. This is different than what was on slide 1. Slide 1 has to do with more kind of the standard marketing items that they've identified in their line item budget. So assuming that they would have, we need to send out this information on this to these 4, say, wedding venue conventions for the first item. We're going to send out our information to attendees to that show. That's going to cost us $2,000 to do that. So that would actually be, if that was in of itself by itself, ideally from a financial management perspective, it's always easiest and probably cleanest to say, we will provide you a reimbursement up to X if you give us the information saying, you did this, here's what our costs were, here's our invoices, here's our receipts, here's what, please reimburse us within 30 days of the request, or however we would define that. That just from a fiscal management standpoint is always the preferred method, I think, from staff's method to do that, because then there's no question to what was used, the marketing costs. Here they are, we defined them, here's what they actually cost, they've put the reimbursement in, and they've reported to us that they've completed what they said they were going to do. So perfect situation, that's ideal situation. That doesn't always work, especially for some smaller events, that doesn't always work. So you always have the ability to provide upfront funds, which I think in the many things in the past, I think we have. Majority of those grants have been upfront. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's simply just making in terms of tracking the information in terms of what the requirements have been from that. It just needs to be followed up a little bit more to ensure that those grant requirements have been met. So you could equally do them both ways. It is absolutely the discretion of the commission, and to the preference of the applicant would simply have to be negotiated. This is kind of specifically in response. This slide specifically was really done in terms of trying to figure out how to provide essentially a maximum amount of funding to the applicants in a manner that is tied to marketing and direct encouragement of heads and beds, as we said originally. And as long as those marketing standards and guidelines have been met, that funding is simply income to the event, and they can use however they deem appropriate, as long as they have met the requirements that the commission has set in whatever grant agreement they've had.
So moving forward,
Mhm.
what onus would be on the grant recipient to provide receipts? For lack of a better word, I'm using the word receipt. What onus would be on the recipient of that
We
grant?
would still, that would have to be defined in the grant agreement in terms of if they're going to be doing, again, so these things in terms of like including it on their website, taking a screenshot, emailing it to us, pretty easy.
Yeah.
But we're including the logo, hotel logos in our registration materials for people interested in the event. Put a hard copy, we even have a hard copy, a PDF, we can actually email them and they can just include it in their document, but show, here's our full packet of people interested, here it is, it's already in there. So those are easier things to do.
Yes.
And when they identify those specific, like sometimes they're hiring a marketing consultant to help with promotion on something. If they're doing radio or print advertising or TV advertising for the event, there's, those are things they can easily provide a receipt for or a contract for. So those can either be provided either in a reimbursement sense request, once they've got it, those funds can be issued. Or you could say, well, okay, well, we're going to give you this up front, but within a fixed amount of time, you have to provide documentation to us that you completed those things that you said you were going to do in your marketing budget. You can do them either way.
Okay.
So, I mean, from a very fiscal conservative standpoint, it's always easiest to hang on to the money, and then when you actually show that you did it, then we can reimburse them. Some folks don't have that cash on hand to be able to do that. So, as long as the commission is comfortable with the applicant, and I think most of these applicants you have a long-term relationship with already, you've already had success with them. So I mean, probably not a real issue. If it's a first-time event from somebody we don't know about, or we know, well, maybe we want to be a little tighter with that then. So this commission always has that ability to decide what and negotiate that as part of the grant award. And then I think just the last one here.
I think Colleen may have had a question.
Oh, Colleen, did you have something?
Well, I was curious if we could go back to the first slide again, and I'm so sorry,
Absolutely.
just because I think it's going to inform our conversation later.
Yeah.
Especially the last bullet, the funds are not meant to cover operating costs, but it is my understanding we have funded operating costs.
I think in the past, that has definitely probably been more, definitely some costs have been, could be considered operating costs, I think, Colleen. My recommendation is to not have them directly paying for those types of things, because I think that can be questioned and challenged if it really came down to it. The second slide is essentially a way of trying to still provide those funds to the applicant in exchange for those advertising considerations, as a kind of just a direct, you give us, you advertise your event in our hotels at your event in this manner, we will give you a check for this much money.
Sure.
What you do with that money is up to you. So if you happen to have a unit and you use it for operating costs,
Right.
that's up to you. We're paying you for advertising the hotels. That's what we're giving you our grant fund for. Yeah.
So just as a commission member, I want to be absolutely 100% clear on what is appropriate, because my understanding of the statute is it's for tourism promotion and development. So when we pay for things like, police training to ensure that our events are staffed by police who are very well trained, so people feel safe, that's part of development. That could be considered an operating cost of events. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always and that's why you guys exist as a commission, Colleen, actually. That's why you guys are kind of here, and because there are always going to be some of those things that are kind of, like I said, that's a great example of, that particular training. It's like, are we just paying the officers for their time, or are we actually paying for a consultant to come in, provide that training? Are we paying for the hotel, helping offset and actually get some of those folks to actually stay in the hotels as part of that training? There's this whole spectrum of where those things might fall on that line. So that's kind of why you guys as a commission are here, to kind of help make that judgment call. And certainly I will do, my best. I do take, and Andy will be the first one to tell you, I take a pretty conservative view on a lot of these. So the way I've kind of worked with that in the past is this sponsorship of the event idea that we kind
Right.
of discussed on the second slide. It's like, look, as long as you're hitting your advertising types of goals that we've asked you to advertise our hotels, well, you've done that, we're gonna give you a grant of X. What you guys?
No, and I think-
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess I am thinking about it as you brought up the example of Aldo Leopold and the wedding events. Now, even from just an investment standpoint, I can't think of anything better for Heads and Beds
Yeah,
than
and
having
the
an amazing
easiest one to document too, Colleen,
Right.
out of any of them.
Right.
In terms of they're good. It's a wedding, it's overnight. There's gonna be hotel stays. We're not really
Sure.
guessing. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And Aldo Leopold, is a nonprofit, and to make sure that they are still, a much sought after wedding venue that has a certain reputation and is well
Right.
staffed, it does seem to be within the scope maybe to help pay for some operating costs.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, that's like, even looking at the minute last time, when they say, well, we've got, would that staff, somebody asked, would that staff person still be there if we didn't do this grant? They said, well, yeah, it would be. So that's kind of, it's like, well, so that makes it a little tougher to explain and justify a little bit.
Well,
So
when
I
they-
get that kind of, go ahead, Andy.
well, no, I mean, we can talk about that when we cover it, because I also want to be mindful of time, but I kind of had the same question that Colleen did.
Yep.
I mean, when I look at, for example, the officer training, that's development because that's providing safety precautions and maybe attracting more events and more people into town.
I agree,
because we
Andy.
have
Yeah.
those precautions.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
And then, we'll talk about it with this wedding position, but I guess a question I had, and I think maybe Colleen brought it up at our last meeting, is like, what's the difference between them coming to us and say, hey, we're going to contract out to update a website or, do marketing and promotion for weddings, but compared to having a staff person, which,
Right.
essentially I have it in my notes somewhere in here. 90% of their staff time is for wedding events and marketing and promotion. So, that's where it kind of gets me, because they can do it cheaper, probably in-house than consulting. And we would pay easily probably for that consultant. But then also now we're questioning the staff position.
I would argue Mr. Kitzar, you're using logic on this, and very rarely does state statute completely follow logic all the time.
Yeah.
I would not argue a single item of what you just said in terms of, I guess I would come back and saying, really, at the end of the day, I guess, as long as we have that sponsorship request in there and they're giving us a deliverable of, look, we advertised it in these 4 ways that you said we would do in your contract. I don't really care if you contracted it or you did it out with somebody else. You got it done. We gave you a dollar figure. We had an agreement and a grant agreement that said in order to exchange for this sponsorship, you would do these advertising things. As long as you've done it, we're good. We're good to go. And if you happen to do it for $1,000 and we gave you a $5,000 grant, you know what? Good on you guys. You can use that is operating income. That's essentially income for you guys to invest wherever you deem appropriate as a revenue.
And I would agree with that. And I think that is where, where the commission comes in and says, for this value, this is what we believe we should be getting. And then I think it's incumbent upon us to do a better job moving forward. And I feel like we talk about this every time, is that follow-up, right? And now that we have you, holding their feet to the fire, saying, with this wedding position, sorry, Betsy, that we keep, but like you said, this amount of weddings, this amount of estimated, we're not going to hold your feet to the fire to the exact number, but if you come back and say, we only got 15 people and we gave you $50,000, that's when we reevaluate. And that's kind of the good and bad of people probably are going to continue to come back, the same organizations. If the same organization wants that money again, they're going to make sure that they've done it. They're going to make sure that they have the reporting capabilities, et cetera. And
absolutely.
so
Yep.
anyways, so I like where you explained it at the end of, you have these deliverables, and in my mind, it's really the Heads and Beds is kind of the overarching. As long as we can prove our hotels are, happy and full, we're doing our job really well.
Yeah, and to your point, Andy, I think that you mentioned in terms of if something, say that if they predicted 1750 and they only come in at 750, say that they can actually track and document. Okay, well, let's talk about that when they come into a commission meeting. We say, was it just a matter of being able to track it and report it, or just, maybe we did hit that number, but we just can't confirm it. You know, anecdotally, it sounds like we did, but we just didn't have the ability to track it. So what can we do better to make that easier and more likely to track that in the future?
Yeah.
So that's a basis of having that conversation. So when they do come back, like, okay, you know what? We're gonna require you to do like a room block, or we're gonna require you to have a registration code or something. And obviously we gotta work with the hotels to do that. We can't just we'll just put it all in the hotels to track everything. Like I said, they've got, like I said, Mitchell not being here, I mean, they're busy enough as it is. But that gives us a basis for that conversation though, to how to improve that, yeah.
And I think one of the last things I'll say, and then maybe we can move on unless other people have general comments, is, you know, that balance between just funding for the marketing, but then knowing if you just fund the marketing, the event can't happen. And that event might be able to bring in 50 people, and that's great, and more than even some of the things that we fund for marketing in other events. So, I mean, in my mind, and I mean, again, you know, you and I have traded emails about this. You know, you look at what other municipalities have done, and they're following the same trend line that we've done. You know, we support the event because we want that event to happen, because we know it's going to get people in the hotels. Now, if we just did the marketing, that event doesn't happen. And I think that's just misuse of funds and, you know, not the intent. But as you said, you know, ordinances and, you know, statutes and stuff don't always follow logic, and sometimes they need to be challenged in order to be changed appropriately.
Yeah, so I mean, and kind of, I think what I'm proposing on that sponsorship idea, Andy, is kind of, it's directly tied to advertising the hotels, which is what the money's for.
Yeah.
But once we get that advertising done, what they do with the rest of that money, or what they do with that money, that's up to them.
Yeah.
As long as we've hit our requirements for marketing those hotels, and we're either trying to track those hotel stays at the end of the day, then I think we and the event applicant has done our job in terms of trying to meet what the statute says.
Perfect. Before we get into your last slide, because I know at least Betsy and myself have to recuse ourselves from a few of them. So I want to make sure before, and I know Colleen has a hard stop at 1. I want to make sure we get through all those, and then the Friends of San Damiano ones real quick. Does anybody have questions from the commission on kind of those first 2 slides? And then we'll do the tourism entity contract kind of midway through this.
Perfect.
After we hit the kind of Aldo and Friends stuff. Okay. Hearing and seeing none, and of course you can always ask any question at any point. Let me pull up. All right, we are going to tackle it in the same order that it was in the January 11th agenda. So we are going to tackle the wedding and sustainable events one. I'll give it to Neil just to kind of explain your staff recommendation or the alteration to that, and then we'll open it up to the commission.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, let's see. So starting off there, so obviously, you know, looking at I'm trying to get this back to my original order here. Hold on here. There we go. Okay. A lot of these, like I said, again, these events, again, all very, you know, variety of positions in terms of information that was provided. You know, I do think that, you know, the wedding and sustainable events one is one that I just kind of really started off really with their marketing kind of budget that they had in their application. Would very much like to, again, find through that sponsorship, I guess, method that I was thinking of, figuring out a way to increase that substantially, because I do think that is not only is it most likely to generate hotel stays, it's probably the most certain to do so. It's the highest number, and it's probably the most certain to generate those hotel stays. So we're definitely be more than happy to increase that $10,000 number. The request was 40,000. I think, you know, I guess, you know, does the commission have a certain particular feeling on that? It would be because the numbers that we're trying to figure out. The other thing I did do with this is trying to figure out, is there a flat, like, per hotel stay, room stay that we would look at from a sponsorship level?
Yeah.
Well, and we kind of, well, obviously for consistency purposes, that would be nice to do. But we've got so many different capacities in terms of the types of events, how large they are, how well they're staffed, the resources they have. They're just kind of all across the board. So probably would recommend, you know, after we get through this first cycle here, would be coming in and saying on a per
Yeah,
kind of establish a minimum level of sponsorship that could be altered based on the commission's evaluation of what the economic impact of the event would be.
so I think what's tough about that too is rates change, right? Depending on, whatever's happening in the area. So we could create a rate for one time and then, Ironman's happening and it's $400 a night. So my one comment on this would be to subtract out the equipment, which is just that 1860, because everything else I think is directly tied to getting heads in beds and marketing and advertising in some way. Whereas, I think you could argue the plates and maybe silverware aren't necessarily something that directly ties it. So that's kind of the sustainability effort of it and different things like that, I think is a way to promote it. But that's just kind of my quick comments for the start of the conversation.
Yeah, I would almost be inclined to fulfill their request. I mean, if we think about it strictly as an investment to heads and beds, doing anything to help their wedding venue business is good. And as Andy mentioned, the staff time, a lot of it is going to be on marketing promotion, but also that staffing events are really, really hard now, and giving a little wiggle room for them, I think is a good idea. So yeah, but I would also support it without the utensils or the supplies. Was that the
Equipment, yeah.
Equipment? Yes.
So essentially, it would be, just to clarify, so we'd be kind of updating it to, so basically their marketing cost plus a sponsorship that would essentially get to their request level. It's kind of what we're thinking.
Well, Teresa, what are your thoughts?
I really do want to support this particular request. And I think we need, and I would be inclined to support it at the requested amount.
Okay.
If there are cuts, yes, we can look at the equipment, absolutely. Perhaps there could be some sort of request for a receipt in the sense of, here's how we used to market, here's how we're marketing now. Here's where we used to reach, here's where we're reaching out to now. Here's how we've been able to reach further. Here's how we're really going after short-term rental properties in Monona as, equally important for heads in those beds. Maybe there's some sort of receipt that could be requested there.
We could address that in the grant agreement, so.
Sure. I mean, either of you are welcome to propose a motion.
I will move.
Okay,
I will
go ahead.
move to fund Aldo Leopold Nature Centers for weddings and sustainable events at the requested amount.
Second.
Okay. Further discussion. Mitchell hasn't joined yet, has he? No. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? All right. Summer camp, adult summer camp.
Similarly, I think this was based on what their marketing costs essentially would be, plus essentially a sponsorship for the hotel promotion, as kind of previously discussed. I think we just kind of came up with a 16,600, and I don't have it broken down exactly what that was. Oh yeah, I guess it was the 7,500 plus 4,100 plus $5,000. I think the 75 and the 41 were costs from their actual application budget, and then $5,000 was for the hotel promotion. Was how we came up with the 16,600.
I feel like I'm comfortable with that based on what I see in their cost estimate worksheet.
Can you do a quick little repeat of that, which you're comfortable with? What was that, Andy?
Oh, so the staff recommended is 16,600. So that's 3,400 below the 20,000 that they requested.
Yep.
They have supplies for about 6,600. And so I feel like it's a good kind of equilibrium in some ways.
Yeah.
Then I move to fund at the staff recommended level.
I'll second that. I think I can second since I can vote. All those in favor, or well, any other additional comments or questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. 30-year anniversary celebration.
This was, I think, some,
I have to say, I really love this. I mean, it's just like, it's a one-time shot. It happens. There's only one 30-year anniversary. I just feel like this would not happen at this. I mean, it clearly won't happen at the scale that the ALMNC is envisioning. It's an opportunity for people to really come and see this jewel that we have here in Monona. And while they're here, they're gonna see other stuff all around that they might come back and connect with. There's just, it's a fabulous event, and I fully support it.
I think we just kind of came up with 15,000 based on the marketing efforts they had identified, and then again, basically a sponsorship for hotel promotion. Again, this could certainly be moved up accordingly. 200. It's I think the previous one had 200. The adult summer camp had 200 stays projected. This one has 250 projected. So the one's a little higher, one's a little lower. So we could certainly adjust those accordingly if the commission would like to do so.
So I think my only concern with this one was, so they want the community lunch or community meal, which I appreciate, but I feel like that's not necessarily a heads and beds piece of it, and that's about $12,000. Having a free meal for Monona residents and area residents and such, and I know anyone could show up, but that was my only hesitancy for the full amount. Was a large piece of it, which is geared just to kind of the community.
Yeah.
And I would,
And,
I guess I would take this opportunity going forward, knowing if said, like I said, any applicant would have multiple events coming in, would maybe even encourage the applicant to maybe bring in all three of those. Like I said, maybe bring in all three of those events as one application. Simply because that gives us a little flexibility in terms of the overall funding amount. Something to just consider for the future. I think it's based on right now, I think it's, we certainly evaluate the individual ones we have, but that would kind of maybe provide the commission a little bit of flexibility budget wise. If we had multiple events, so throughout the year, you're not talking about just advertising those hotels on a particular spot. You could say, hey, well, all the Leopold's actually agreeing to advertise our hotel partners for the full year kind of thing. And in exchange, they're going to do these 3 or 4 events kind of thing. So just a note for the future.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad you bring up that point, because I know Kara did mention that this 30th anniversary is going to be a year-long thing,
Right.
while this one free meal is just one event that they're hoping to get over 1,000 attendees to. That's where I kind of could be flexible. I guess it was just kind of looking at the budget, knowing that just that food cart piece was just for that meal was tough. But I mean, to Neil's point, it is going to be a year-long thing. It's going to be different events. This is just one of those. I can be flexible in my thoughts.
Yeah. And Andy, I appreciate where you're coming with that. I sort of was rolling that around in my head also. I do think there's power in a well orchestrated kickoff event to generate the momentum that carries the events that follow. You get people in the door, and once they're in the door, and perhaps food is a way to get them in the door, then they sort of take stock of all the other opportunities and perhaps even come back for a second one of those 30-year events that may be happening months down the road. But if we never get them into the door, if we never get them into Monona in the nature center, then you lose all those other next steps that would have happened.
Sure.
Currently, staff recommendation was 15,000. The request was 30,000.
I'll move to fund this event at a different amount. Can we go 20,000 instead of 30, instead of 15? I'll move to fund it.
I would second 20. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, no, I mean, open for discussion now. I mean, I like that idea, either 20 or, maybe on the higher end, 25 is kind of where the
Sure.
range I was thinking, but I'm comfortable with 20 for sure.
If you want to move for 25, Andy,
I'll,
do I hear it? Do I need to amend my motion?
Oh, if you do another one, I don't know. How does that work?
yeah, I think you would just
Someone
amend-
needs to
take
shoot
it
it.
as a
I think we
friendly
need to
amendment.
vote.
I
We
would
need to
say if
vote and
Colleen
shoot
wants
it
to do that,
down.
I'm really like 100% comfortable at 20,000. I could go up to 25, but so I'll let Colleen, if she wants to move up to 25, maybe make a friendly amendment and then you can just accept it. I think.
I would like to move for 25. I think this is about supporting one of the best tourism institutions we have in our city limits. And I think it's a good investment. So I would move for 25.
Okay. Teresa, do you accept that as a
I
friendly amendment?
fully accept that
Okay.
and support it and second it.
Any additional questions, comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Okay, so now we are going to, I'm just going down my list here, to the Snow Snake games of the Friends of San Damiano, so Betsy can pop back in. Hopefully.
Yeah, I actually am having
Oh.
trouble with my video, but I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, we got it on iPhone too, that's right.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so, yeah,
All right, we are gonna
Technology
move,
Monday.
yeah. We are gonna move to the Friends of San Damiano, which is one I'm gonna recuse. And make sure, Neil, the record show that Betsy was recusing herself or abstaining from all those
Yep.
all the ones, and then I'm abstaining and recusing myself from the Friends of San Damiano one.
Yep, perfect.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find it. Well, I'll let Neil start. So they requested 1425, and then the staff recommendation was 1,000.
Yeah, and essentially this is, again, this is what I think this is largely the operating cost for the event. So in terms of kind of still wanting to support the event and still figure out a way, we kind of proposed $1,000 hotel or kind of the general promotion. This is, again, because of the number of hotel stays projected, this is a difficult one to come up with a direct line on this one in terms of what it could be. I think in the future, this is one, again, this is not necessarily for this vote, but this, I think the Friends, especially knowing that they have multiple events throughout the year, would like to maybe see a larger kind of coordinated application in the future with all of their events. Because I think that would give the commission a little bit more flexibility in terms of evaluating how that would go. So essentially, we looked at this as kind of our minimum investment in terms of requiring somebody to ask somebody to advertise our hotels for us. We thought $1,000 was kind of the minimum we would encourage. So again, similarly, I think the Friends currently have a grant, an active application open for the wood carving event coming up, which is going to be phenomenal. And that's, so I think combining that plus this one, maybe plus one or two other events, I think might just have a little bit more bang for the buck going forward. But again, so right now we're at basically $1,000 for the $1,400 request.
Comments.
I think I could be persuaded to go the full 14, but what do you think, Teresa?
I definitely could be persuaded. I almost wish, I feel like there's more that could be done to easily burn through $1,400. And, this bringing people to San Damiano is critical for the success of that investment. People need to find ways to love that place, connect with that place. It's just unfortunate that this is such a weather dependent event as we've seen this year. It just, it's really, yeah. But, more advertising, bigger budget on, really getting the word out far and wide, and connecting with the Ho-Chunk is something I so strongly endorse. So Colleen, are you making a motion or shall I?
So I'll move for the 1425 for the full requested amount.
Yeah, and I will second that.
Any further discussion? Betsy, I know you're there too.
I'm there. Yes, I agree, Teresa. Connecting with the Ho Chunk is important. So I appreciate that comment.
Yeah.
Further discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye.
All those opposed? All right.
And you recusing yourself, right?
Yep, I am recusing myself. Sorry, I just got a text. Christine is waiting to be admitted into the meeting.
Oh, hold on, yep, I can fix that, hold on. She must have popped out and popped back in. I thought we had her in there earlier. There she is.
Okay. Hi, Christine. Oh, there she is.
She's coming. There we go.
All right. We will, let's tackle, Lake Monona 20K race day
Mhm.
events.
mhm.
We're gonna go
Okay.
kind of,
So this was the unusual one of the bunch. They had actually requested 12.5 and I actually recommended 14. That was a full amount of their marketing expenses related to the event. So again, based on the overnight stays, the impact of the race projected at 500, certainly felt that 14,000 was a more than reasonable request. Again, this is that we right now, it does not have a listed as the kind of the hotel promotion. We've got it listed in there, but this is really, the 14 is really based on their marketing costs right out of their line item in their application.
Yeah, and then, not to mention that the best, post-race event around, I think there's some, it's bigger than just a race.
is there a motion?
I'll move for 1,400, or sorry, 14,000.
All right, I'll second that. Is there any additional questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Oppose? Nay? Okay, passes.
Thanks, Brad and Ryan.
Yep, thanks. We will go to Slack Attack, Memorial Day Parade here.
This is one, again, this is a little bit of probably one of the tougher ones on the list. It's usually a lot of these are operating costs related to in the application that was provided. So I think a large amount of this is really related to kind of the sponsorship marketing ideas. So certainly for their marketing efforts, but as well as the hotel promotion. So the request was 21.3. Staff would recommend was at 20. The interesting, again, the challenge in terms of number of visitors coming to the event, this is probably going to be one of the top ones on the list.
Right.
But it's how many of those actually end up being hotel stays, I think is probably the large challenge there. So again, for a projected stay of 100 hotel stays. Again, we kind of, looked to take the marketing costs that they had in it, we felt were good eligible costs, and then added the actual some sponsorship money in there for advertisement of the hotels.
All right. Is there a questions or comments on that or a motion? Bless you.
I would move to do the staff recommended amount of 20,000.
I'll second.
All right, any further questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Nay? Okay, passes. All right, I think the rest are all MESBA. Let's, sorry, I'm jumping around here a little bit. The last one with Aldo connected to it is Earth Day. So let's jump to the Earth Day MESBA piece.
Okay.
So,
Again, this is similarly, there's, about 20 hotel stays projected for this one. Looked at, again, kind of identifying a reimbursement for their marketing efforts. And then somebody basically a general amount for the bed and hotel marketing promotion. So 44,050 was requested. Staff recommended 2,900 as they know. So.
I'm sorry, folks, I just had to step out to get a glass of water. Are we now handling all of the MESBA events as one lump?
This
We're-
is just Earth Day at this point, yeah.
Just
Yeah,
the
there-
Earth Day event, okay.
there's three, the Discover Monona website, the media library and then the Monona area guide are gonna be grouped together in that
Yeah.
contract that we'll discuss in a little bit. But then
Mhm.
there's a few outliers, this Earth Day being one of them.
Sure.
What was the staff recommended on this one?
Staff
2,900.
recommended was 2,900.
Okay.
I particularly like the collaboration with Aldo, working together also with, what is it, Big Oak or, Good Oak? Yeah. Wonderful promotion.
I
of
do-
Monona businesses,
thanks.
planting native plants in front of Monona businesses, storefronts, beautification of Monona Drive. I mean, how,
Mhm.
it's fabulous.
Yeah, some of this seems to definitely square with development, with,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
helping improve Monona's reputation as a place that supports sustainability.
You bet. You bet.
Is there a motion?
Sorry, why was the staff recommendation cut? Just so I understand that.
Again, we just took the, kind of what we tried to do on the similar ones, Colleen, we took the
Mhm.
actual marketing expenses and then
The
added
marketing,
some
right,
for the
yeah.
hotel promotion. Again, which
Got
is,
it, got it, got it.
which is a little bit of a dartboard. So at this point, so we
Right,
don't have a
right.
set standard of this, but again, trying to make it at least somewhat tied to what the projected hotel stays would be.
Yeah, it does seem that it just seems like a very labor intensive boots on the ground sort of event that would perhaps not be possible if staff were not able to really clear their plates of other, work and focus on this.
Yeah, with that development piece in mind, I would maybe move to fulfill the funding request at the original amount.
Yeah.
But happy to,
Are you maybe moving or are you moving?
Is that a motion?
Well, unless there's any disagreement. I guess I will move, I move to fulfill the original request amount.
Yeah, and I will second that.
Any further questions or comments? I saw your phone unmute, Betsy. Was there anything?
No, I was
Oh,
just getting
okay.
ready to say aye.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. All right. Let's see here. Sorry. Self-discovery weekend. This is another outlier one. And that was request of 15,750 and then staff recommended 7,300.
Similar to the other ones, this is looking at just pulling out the marketing efforts and then adding back in some funds for hotel promotion. Hotel stays projected with this particular application was 40 overnight stays.
So it's a weekend-long event, and those who participate would sign up for an entire weekend of pampering and learning and growth. Okay.
Yeah.
I can just say the website's already up, so if you go to discovermonona.com events, you can see the whole thing on there already. And we already have registrations coming in, so.
Awesome. My wife saw it, Christine. I don't know how she came across it, but she saw it already. She's like, ooh.
Fantastic.
So whatever you're doing, it's doing well. Even reaching out in Sun Prairie, so.
Good,
Yeah,
good.
I mean, people need an opportunity to take care of themselves, and especially with emphasis on mental health. It's appreciated that you're offering it.
Yeah, I think this is this is an event geared to get to people to Monona and to get people to enjoy our businesses and realize like what a special gem this is. So I would maybe not the full amount, but I would propose doing more than the staff recommended amount. I don't know what other people's thoughts are on this. Sorry, I'm just trying to scroll and find the cost.
Yeah.
No, I think I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the schedule and how it covers an entire weekend, but maybe I'm just looking in the wrong place.
If you scroll all the way back to the bottom of that first page that explains the event,
Sure.
there's descriptions of all the workshops and the schedule there, so you can kind of see how
Okay,
3 different tracks 3 times a day. And then we have everybody would be able to go to a breakfast and a kickoff meeting. Everybody can go to the happy hour, to the candlelight hike. And then on Sunday, we have a tea and coffee with the Dean House and breakfast in the morning as well for the participants.
So you come to Monona for the weekend, you stay in a hotel, you wake up and are greeted by a different slate of opportunities every day, food, learning, yeah.
And one of the
Okay.
reasons we did request a little bit more money is because we had originally hoped that our businesses would cover the cost of their workshops. But,
Oh.
you know, in a real world, they have supply costs and personnel cost as well. So a lot of them are asking for partial reimbursements for their workshops, which is where some of that money is going to go.
I think, yeah, I agree with Andy. This seems like a great showcase for Monona businesses, but I'm sure, especially for a new event, it's going to be a lot of people who live locally who do it. So, I don't know, maybe $10,000.
I was gonna say 12,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'd support that.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll move for $12,000.
I'll second.
Okay. Additional conversation? Seeing here none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. All right. I think, let me just scan my list here. Yeah, I think all the rest of them would lump into this tourism entity contract. So I'm gonna pass it back to Neil because I know he has one slide about that, just kind of.
Yep, let me fire that one up here.
And are you going to have quorum if I hop off?
We will, yeah, because no one
Okay.
has to recuse themselves.
Yep.
So,
Excellent. All right.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
you.
Colleen.
Bye.
All right, let me find my,
and I think we just have 2 items, this one and then one other item for everybody else who's on the
Yep.
call. So hopefully it won't be too much longer.
oh, we'll be quick here. Zoom and find share screen. There we go. All right, so just kind of third one here. So tourism entity contract. So admittedly, I will admit, guys, this was when I first came in and I reviewed MESBA's contract with you guys. This was the first time I'd never seen any sort of financial compensation for a tourism entity to do the tourism work, and that there weren't specific marketing things kind of identified. It was very general and very broad. So as I kind of got through, I was kind of halfway through the third application on Christine's. I was like, wait a minute, the guide, the media library, and the website, that's all stuff your tourism entity should be naturally taking care of. That should be actually, if you're contracting with someone, they kind of should be taking care of those things. Not really necessarily asking for a grant to do those things. If they're contracted to do that, that should actually be part of that. And there should actually be a financial tie to, for, compensating them for doing those things. So that's kind of just was the thought process on those 3 individual grants. I said, well, and I think, and I heard Christine today, you said you actually have a tourism coordinator on staff as part of that. So, I mean, those are all kind of costs, I think, that are eligible costs for these funds that we talk about with room tax funds. So what staff is proposing, or I'm proposing specifically, is kind of basically just amending and updating the current tourism entity contract to include these specific performance requirements as deliverables in exchange for, I think I have $50,000 in there right now. It was the dollar figure that I put in to do that. So essentially, this would replace the 3 individual grant applications. The one entity would require some sort of quarterly reporting on marketing activities to the commission when we're reviewing those applications, just to talk about an updated progress on overall marketing efforts for the city. To me, this makes a lot more sense. You're managing one agreement instead of 3. It actually manages to get, I think we can actually get MESBA is our tourism entity, a little bit more funds to actually, implement some of these things. And actually, while it simplifies it, it actually does kind of give the commission a little bit more control over these items. Because if there's a lack of performance on any of these items, you can hold back payment, or you can actually, on any of those things, not just the one. So it actually would kind of almost increase the expectation and the control over that in terms of reporting progress back on those things in exchange for that little bit more funding is kind of what at least staff was thinking on that. I've had just a very quick conversation with Christine on the concept. I don't know, Christine, if you have any concerns or questions on that. It would basically be all things you were going to be doing anyway. So it's just moving them into the one kind of out of the grant realm and into the actual just tourism entity contract is essentially really all we're proposing here at this point.
The only question I had was just in speaking to other chamber directors in the area, when they get a large sum of money, they have to put it into a special account and have like a different bank account and all of that kind of thing. But this isn't exactly what you're talking about, because we're not getting the full 70%. We're still contracting per.
That would be my understanding,
Or
Christine.
thing? Okay.
We'll double check that and confirm that. I think as long as you have an accounting mechanism in place for understanding that this is where these funds came in, we're not even asking you to say, what'd you spend on the website? What'd you spend on the area? Although you'll be able to do those things.
Right.
I think there's just a reasonable financial report request back. This isn't, it's because you guys aren't getting all of the funds. This isn't like an auditable situation. This would simply be the contract states for an exchange for this much money. These are the deliverables essentially we'd be asking you to perform and duties to perform during the year and to report back on them. Obviously, and obviously both your board and this commission would have to ultimately approve the contract. So.
And point of question or clarification, has MESBA in the past been asked to sort of have these sort of performance requirements?
Not contractually. They have always, aside from the media library, they've always applied for these funds annually. So before the room tax dollars, the city would budget $10,000, but then once the room tax dollar law passed, they've been using, or they've advised us to use tourism dollars for it, which I think makes sense. But no, and as far as the contract, it was a very simple contract, and I think it was just an annual contract, and it was just that a commission needs to identify a tourism entity.
Right.
At the time when it was created, it was either Madison or MESBA. At the time, MESBA didn't really have any tourism aspect to it, but we just wanted to keep it more local than sending it to Madison. So we thought that made sense. One question
that would be the original contract structure we would still be starting with, and simply be adding these kind of deliverables into that as additions to that existing contract.
Yeah. I think this direction makes perfect sense, because again, these are items that they continue to do, and as probably like printing costs or different things increase in price, that's when Christine can have the conversation, with you, Neil, or with the commission, and say, hey, like, we need to kind of look at this contract again. I kind of had two things, a comment and a question. One comment would be, I'm wondering if we could even move it to like a 6-month reporting. So like every July 1, or whenever we have that meeting in July, sure. I think it's July 11th. That's when Christine would do a report. And then at the end of the year, kind of a report synopsis. I just feel like quarterly, I would like to try the 6-month one, see if we're getting the information we need. Quarterly, I feel like there's a lot of like things that are in motion. And so we might be wasting her time and wasting our time as far as like getting the information and questions answered that we might have. So that would be one comment. And then the question I have for Christina actually is, with this tourism, I know MESBA's been doing more tourism stuff. What would you say equate your time, and a similar question that I had for the kind of wedding position, your time, and or I know you have a staff person that works with the tourism and marketing piece of things too. What is the percentage of time that you think you as an organization are devoting towards tourism?
Honestly, right now, because we have the self-discovery weekend, we've got the guide coming out, and all of that. 80% of my time is being taken up by these kinds of things. And then the website is always in the mix, trying to get it updated. And and fixed and renewed. There's just a lot of links that aren't there anymore, missing or whatever, because there hasn't been a lot of maintenance on it for a while. So I myself plus Laura are spending almost all of our time on these kinds of events at the moment.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and I know, I think I told you, Christine, but I've talked to Neil too. I know, like, as you discussed with the board, kind of what that MESBA in the future looks like in that mission. I mean, let's keep an open conversation of what that looks like. What does tourism play a role in the future? You know, do you go on it to that type of thing? I think would be, you know, helpful in all those discussions. But so I am supportive of the 50, and you know, there's a piece of me that actually wants to increase it maybe to 60,000, knowing that there is staff time and knowing that we could create kind of the sponsorship opportunity that, you know, working with Christine and other events that they do, maybe, you know, outside the 3 kind of contractual pieces, that we could kind of work those terms out, if you will. So I guess that would be my motion, is $60,000, doing a 6-month reporting instead of the quarterly, and then advising staff to work with, or, you know, drafting an appropriate contract that I think should come to our next meeting for formal approval. However, I don't know how to word this. This is a long motion, apparently. I don't want that to stop the funding for the guide and for, you know, the media and stuff before we approve the contract formally. So I don't know if we need to have 2 motions kind of for the contract and then for these items in particular, but I just don't want, you know, because the guide is in motion, I don't want our funding to hold up anything there if we have to wait until April to approve at our next meeting.
I guess I'd suggest that we could, submit if Christine either has an estimate or an invoice for those costs, to submit to, you can authorize staff to process that for payment for those items.
Sure.
Not to, I was just saying not to exceed the $60,000.
Okay, so I'll make a remotion or amend my motion. So I would say, you know, I motion to approve the 3 items that are stated within the contract that we were presented with proposal, for them to provide receipts not to exceed $40,000. Where do I get 40,000? Is if you add them up, it's 38,659. I just wanted an even number, but we can be exact if we need to. And then in addition to that motion, I also motion for the staff to create a contract for a $60,000 ultimate contract that includes these 3 pieces.
And then
I will second so that we can have conversation.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, because I have questions. So
Yeah.
what is the need? Why the need for 2 separate sort of buckets of money, or what?
Well,
It's just timing, right, Andy, in terms of
Yeah.
their costs being
Okay,
incurred already right
okay.
now by MESBA, that they could use these funds to get those things processed. And if they're going to be part of this contract anyway, just to go ahead and authorize the payments of those early
Got it.
before we have the full contract agreement done.
Whereas
Perfect.
in future years, we wouldn't need this 2-step process because it would all be lumped together. Okay,
Correct.
got it. Okay,
No, I messed everything all up by kind of throwing all these together, but it just seemed it will be easier and cleaner in the
I
future.
think it's a good change. It'll be smoother the next time. Yeah, no, I agree with it.
the only other point of conversation, so previously it's been an annual contract. Do we say this is a 2, 3, 4, 5-year contract? Like 5 years might be too long as we want to like rework it, or do we just keep doing it annually because the dollar amount might change? I wanted to throw that out there.
I think right now, I do believe it automatically renews unless there's specific action taken by the commission. I believe
Okay.
is what happens right now. So it would
That
be,
works
if
perfectly fine
if
with
you
me.
wanted to do it, I can increase the dollar figure, Andy, I'd say that would you just bring that up as a item
Okay.
at the end of the year, and we could take care of it then, absolutely.
That works for me.
that was my question too, was about the timing of renewal. And then does that mean that MESBA would not need to come with a grant request? It would just be part of this contract renewal for these
those-
particular items?
Yeah, for those items, absolutely, Betsy. Yeah, that would be my intention, is that those things would be off now. They still obviously have the ability, something comes up with Destination Madison, a really cool joint thing that's not identified in there, but they can still come to us and ask for funding for anything new that might come up that we didn't have planned. They always have the ability still to do that, so.
In that case, I will second the motion as presented by Andy.
The jarbled motion that it was.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm glad we recorded it, that's all, so.
Yeah. All right, so I mean, the ultimate thing is that this would be a contract that's renewable, unless we otherwise take action, for $60,000. That would include, Discover Monona website, additions to the media library as necessary, and then the Monona area guide as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right.
And we bring a contract back to this body.
Yep, thank you.
Every 6 months. Correct?
The
No, just- no,
report.
That's just a reporting, yep.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a
report back
different-
from
okay.
Christine would be every
Okay.
6 months.
Do we need to call for a vote or
Yep.
say aye?
Yep. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, nay. All right. Perfect. I think that's everything on our list. And then we have the agenda item. Thanks, Christine. For consideration, consideration possible action on request for approval of funds for an ad in the Madison Regional Livability Magazine.
Yep, let me grab that here, share my screen. This was actually included in your previous packet here. Let's see if that comes up the way it's supposed to. There it is. This was an advertisement that we were looking at doing. So this is Livability Magazine, works with the Madison Region Economic Partnership to basically do an overall kind of an economic development profile promotion piece, essentially to try to attract business to the region, the whole Madison region. Municipalities participate by taking out advertising space or writing articles in the space. So we were approached about providing an ad, a full page ad in this particular item. I believe, I'm trying to remember, put the dollar figure, how much it was in there, Andy, somewhere. Can't remember what it was. It was around.
I actually didn't see a dollar figure.
Oh, let me see here. Did I not include that? I want to say it's around $5,000, I believe. But this is a nationally distributed magazine, essentially. So this ad would go into, there's probably, I think 20 or 30,000 copies of this that go out to various site selectors, realtors, other different companies available. A lot of it, you'll see the around in a variety of different office settings in terms of having this magazine will be out in corporate settings. So it is something we have participated in before. I took it, I think it's very more specifically as more of a, again, we kind of just threw this together as kind of just a sample of kind of what we wanted. And the advertising team from the magazine said, actually, this is perfect. You should leave it just the way it is. So you kind of, so we got, obviously, took advantage of Alder DePula and sending me a photo. And then obviously these are our presidents of MESBA right now, I believe. So happy to have them participating. And then we simply have the ice rink. And then I think, Andy, you probably recognize those chairs, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
from San Damiano. So then by simply adding the hotels, kind of the theme of Visit Madison, Stay in Monona, that's again, that's an absolute something hopefully we can use for other purposes as well, kind of going forward. So the request, I'm trying to remember if I apologize because I thought I actually had.
That photo of the river rink is spectacular.
Isn't that, yeah, the lighting,
Well
that really was perfect. So yeah, obviously we got the Discover Monona logo in the corner,
Yep.
city logo in the other.
Yeah.
I apologize. I thought I had included the information on the distribute. I mean, I actually have a full list from.
Yeah, I wasn't, I kind of wondered about that too, Neil. So it wasn't just me. Okay, good.
I thought I had included, but maybe I'll get the tourism entity agreement. The existing agreement is attached to the last packet. So.
Yeah.
So if
And you
anyone's
think
interested in that, I can happily provide that. So.
So it would be a full year in a magazine, or do
Yeah,
they just
absolutely.
publish
Yeah,
it
this
once
would
and
be-
then?
Correct. Yeah, this would be essentially the addition for a full year. That would be
Okay.
distributed yeah, nationally, so.
Logistically, I mean, you're not looking for my creative insight here, but I know the Madison Discover Monona, I should say, logo has changed. I think they got rid of the pterodactyl in there.
Oh, okay.
So you'll want to make sure, just touch base with Christine. And then we've been mentioning with other applications like the Airbnbs and such and promoting those. I know the hotels have logos,
Yep.
Airbnb, but if we get $100,000 every year from Airbnb or wherever,
Exactly.
I'm wondering if there's a way we can
We
promote.
should,
that.
They are, those are available through these two web links at the bottom.
could we
Okay.
just,
The only problem we had with that, I'm gonna head you off at the pass on this one, is there are probably 24 different registration sites for Airbnb, for short-term
Right.
rentals.
Okay,
So it's very, I mean, we could focus on either like Airbnb, and there's probably 2 or 3 main ones, but there are actually like 24 different sites that you can actually process registrations through.
and
So we
maybe
did
there's a
try to
way just to
include those.
state and other,
Yeah.
you know.
They are available
short-term-
if you go to these websites. There are links provided to those other entities.
is
Uh,
there a way to, instead of just going to the homepage of My Monona, can the reader be directed to that very specific page where the information about those short-term rentals is?
We could, if as a digital link, we absolutely can do that, Alder, but unfortunately, if I had to put that link on here, it's
So this
like,
is just printed,
it's
okay,
spaghetti. Yeah, unfortunately, it's this big, long link in terms of how we could
Okay.
get there. We could probably put a way to do a forwarding website to it.
you're right, you're right.
Yeah, this is, and then really, we want to really try to drive them towards this one anyway.
Are you sure there's not for like the Airbnb and the VRBO logo in there? I mean, we've done this, the council has done good work to make these short-term rentals, work for everyone. There's been some changes to them, but we still want to promote them.
Yeah, and again, we can. It's difficult without being able to put a web link on those specifically, Alder,
Yeah.
we can really get them to
Okay.
be effective. I mean, you could
I was just thinking about, like,
Airbnb, but
the-
there's,
Airbnb logo or the VRBO logo, that's all.
yeah. So if I can actually see here, I'll just show folks just for sake of discussion here. Come on now. Let's see, let me do a quick stop share here and bring this up so I can find this. Let's see, so we know.
I think while you're doing that, just for the sake of conversation too, is again, you didn't ask for my creative insight. I'm wondering, so we're highlighting winter activity in a
Right.
big way there. I'm wondering if we can highlight a summer or other especially if
Like
it's
the
going to be a
swimming
year-long
pool?
thing. And I like that we have the business piece of it, but I'm wondering if, since that's not necessarily an activity that gets people to come to Monona and stay, I don't know.
Yeah, we kind of hope that middle photo with the chairs was kind of our summer photo.
The middle
And
Yeah,
photo-
which that's a good one.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find.
But I think we have some like beer garden ones that might be a little bit more festive or something.
Yeah, beer garden's fantastic.
Let me see here. Okay.
Just
so
live
let's-
music in the park, yeah.
So let me just show you, just to kind of give you an example of, come on, here we go. So this is now on the, come on, let's go. There we go. So here basically on our tourism
Yep.
commission page on the city,
Yep,
there it comes. Now we actually have,
I recall
Direct
you put
links
it
to our
there, which I really
hotels.
liked, yeah,
we have that full information on there, and we have
exactly,
Airbnb, VRBO, Expedia, kind of our top 3
yep,
identified here. So we are advertising them and promoting them. It's just in a print document. Again, that doesn't really help. It might make you think of short-term rentals, but it certainly doesn't help you identify kind of where you want to stay. You still need to go to those websites. So it's without a tangible link. It's kind of, it's a little bit less effective in print, I would say.
Can-
So
Can you go back to the other one? The actual ad or whatever?
Yeah.
Sorry.
let's see if I can find that one. Hold on here. So, I don't know if there's a way to just switch. I'm gonna stop it. Let's go back to here.
Well, my only comment was gonna be, I think those are also general like Avid hotel
yeah,
logo. So it would be the same as a VRBO logo. So I'm
exactly.
wondering if we could just add those like those 3 additional ones. So we just have examples, because at least they might not go through Airbnb or something, but at least then they think of short-term rentals
Right.
and they can go through their favorite avenue.
Exactly.
Not trying to be a sticky wicket here, but
No, it's okay. I mean,
That's-
like I said, I
you've
think.
sum- yeah, that's what I was thinking too, Andy.
Yeah, and like I said, and we actually, and like I said, we did briefly consult with, like I said, their advertising team, and they, you know, again, they kind of said that they thought this was gonna be the most
Okay.
effective. At
Is
some
there
point-
sort of do our hotel partners are they sort of not
No.
interested in promoting short-term rentals? Is that sort of a,
But certainly competition, Alder,
It is,
absolutely.
yeah, it
Absolutely,
is.
but I mean, I think in terms of those are, I would argue many times those are different markets. They're different,
Okay.
it's a different client. Sometimes large, you know, hotels, it could be families, could be larger groups, could be other
generates room
things.
tax? I mean, yeah,
Yeah, they do pay room tax, absolutely, but I think in terms of, like I said, we had limited space and so we wanted to kind of maximize the graphics and the photos for sure.
Mhm.
To get it in there and we kind of, that's why we actually added the websites as a secondary link. The first version didn't have those websites at the bottom. So
Okay.
we do get them there, but it is not an immediate.
Yeah.
Immediate access add to that, so.
I mean, I like it. I like the idea. I'd probably, I wish it screamed Monona a little bit more. Like, I know we have our logos kind of in the corners, but I'd pass it by a graphic designer in my opinion, but
Yeah.
it's up to you.
Yeah,
And
that-
did we find the amount that was being requested?
See, that, I mean, I will find that here. Hold on, let me see here. I actually have that on my email here.
Yeah, because
like maybe
I'm comfortable
like
passing.
a picture of a kayaker on the lake or something like that, like, yeah, that San Damiano photo is real beautiful.
Yeah, that's exactly what was. And the one Andy in the San Damiano, when they used the beginning and the end of I about lost my fingers taking that picture. It was
Oh,
so
yeah.
cold. The wind coming right off the lake there, I was like, holy cow.
I'm thinking
So
like
it's-
maybe a little kid at the Aldo Leopold Center, like tasting the maple syrup, the sap out of the tree would be sort of another, Monona, really uniquely Monona image.
I figure here. Yes.
I feel like it's very balanced in terms of like events and people. I'm just wondering, like, I don't know, it at the end, it's not really gonna matter much, but to Andy's point about what it is, which I wish it screamed Monona more, yeah. Instead of
For
just people, yeah,
For the sake of time,
Full page general placement, guys, it's $49.25.
okay,
okay. So I'd be willing to make a motion for up to $5,000 for a year-long ad like this.
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? You've heard all our comments and they're on record now, so.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, we got a little surprised in terms of timing. It's like how fast they just go, oh, we
Yeah.
think this looks great. We're like, oh, okay. We had to
Yeah.
get high res versions of everything. And yeah, so.
Maybe Betsy can send you a picture of some little kids tasting the sap from one of those maple trees or something, but that's a winter event.
Yeah, we can-
Yes, I
it
guess that's a
would be-
winter event, but
It would not be bad to have a couple versions of that kind of theme just to have available for folks. Like I said,
Right.
we're talking about like all these hotel sponsorships and asking
Yep.
people to include these things. This
Yep.
is an easy way to do that, is just send them a PDF
You
of this
bet.
to be like, guys, just include this in your application materials. That way they don't have any production time. They can literally just incorporate it into whatever they've got. So
All right,
we can have a couple versions of that.
so we have that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed, nay? Okay. All right, so those, excuse me, all the proposals, that was all that's on our agenda. Just to recap, we approved $198,075 today. With all of that we approved, so.
Which dollar figure did you have, Andy?
You can always correct me, but 198,075.
Okay, I had 193, so I'm off by 5 somewhere.
Well, did you add the 5 for the magazine that we just did?
Oh, that's it. Okay. Yep,
Yeah.
gotcha. Right.
Yeah.
I was looking at the grant one. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect.
All right. Sorry, let's go back to the agenda. There's no new business. Any additional staff updates?
No new
right.
updates.
Our next application process, everything is due on April 1st. And then we will be meeting on April 11th. hopefully everybody has received calendar invites from Neil. He sent them, gosh, a while back. So if you don't see them on your calendar, let us know and we'll be sure to make sure they're invited. So you see the next 3 applications. That's all I got. Appreciate everybody's patience, time.
Yep, thank you, everybody. I apologize for missing the first round. Trust me, I would much rather been here.
No
So-
worries. Glad you feel better. Hopefully that's the case. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All those in favor say, well, second, I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, nay. Perfect. All right. Everybody have a great day. Thanks again, everyone. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.